Welcome home, y'all. This is Native Land Pod. I am Angela Rye with Tiffany Cross and Andrew Gillum. We are joined today. You done?
He's already the issue.
That was your intro.
He's already the issue. Please, Angela,
so
continue.
much with your delayed ass intro. We are joined today by one of our good friends, our dear sister, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who represents Massachusetts 7th District, and she is on the move, y'all. She's getting things done. Y'all talk about where are our fighters. She is in these streets making sure that we are represented, that our interests are heard, that they're known, and that we don't silently disappear into the dark. So she is just coming from a protest, which we will hear about.
No, on the way, friend.
Oh, she's on the way. Thanks,
Yes.
Andrew, on the way into the
Time for
protest.
us.
All right,
Yes.
well, let's hear about this protest from her while I'm getting fact checked. Congresswoman, tell us where you are headed and the importance of this moment.
Yeah, first I just want to say that it's good to be home, y'all.
Yes.
Good to be with you.
Yes.
And I just want to say this: community in this moment is not a nice to have; it is a must have.
True.
So as we revisit that question from King, where do we go from here? You know, in a moment of chaos, cruelty, and corruption, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? We have to continue to choose community.
That's right.
And solidarity, because this wholesale harm is coming for everybody. So right now I'm on my way to a protest at one of our federal buildings in solidarity with federal workers. And let me just say this, as someone who was an aide for 16 years, I get so tired of people not seeing the humanity of our federal workforce and thinking that this is just, hacks living on the government dole. These are people that could have been serving and taking their talents many other places.
Yeah.
But with intention, they arrived at the office every day to make sure that someone was on the other end of the line to pick up the phone when you were in crisis and you needed a lifeline and you needed an advocate. These are dedicated, compassionate, brilliant individuals who deserve more than to receive a pink slip or a threatening email from a Doge bro or from some rich, entitled, greedy, grubby hand millionaire who's taken a wrecking ball to the infrastructure of our federal government. And now so many federal workers don't know how they'll provide for their own families. But I'm going to tell you what, I've spent a lot of time with these workers, and their primary concern is not even how they will provide for their families. It's not even their livelihood. It is how would their unfinished work impact the people in the communities that they serve.
Yeah.
What does this mean for that grant that someone is now not advancing? What does this mean for that veteran with the VA? What does this mean for someone whose Head Start portal, is closed? So I'm on my way in solidarity, because every day at this inflection point where cruelty, chaos, and corruption are our daily intake, our daily food, I'm going to choose community.
That's real. That's real. Do you think it's ironic that you got this guy heading Doge, a made-up organization that ain't really legit yet as an organization, an agency of the government? The wealthiest man in the damn world happens to be telling us about wasted federal money, taxpayer dollars, while he's on the take? That this man is criticizing the appropriations of you all, while at the same time putting money in his pocket from the very source that he's criticizing. What's the irony in that, and how do we drive that further home, or do you even think it matters?
Okay, let me just say this. As I think about how to move forward, I always take a look back. So there's three things that are guiding me in this moment. One, the blueprint laid out to us in the early chapters of the civil rights movement, which we're still very much in. Dr. King said our most powerful weapon is organizing. So we have to organize. Now listen, that is hard to do when their strategy is to flood the zone, is shock and awe, and it's to overwhelm us to such an extent that we just start being reactive. And sometimes in being reactive, we're not being strategic. So I keep looking back to those early chapters and studying movements like what did they do? What did resistance look like? And again, there's three things that I think we always need: imagination, strategy, and stamina. I've learned that from studying movements. The second thing is I look at the pandemic, because that's the closest analog that I have to this moment. is wholesale harm. And what did we do? We stood up infrastructure, rapid response, mutual aid. Those are some of the things that I'm working on actively right now. So mutual aid, that's the second thing. And then the third thing, Dr. King, tells us that we have to study the words of the oppressed to inform our strategy. So I am paying close attention to every executive action and the words of this authoritarian and fascist regime and Donald Trump and Elon Musk. So Dr. King says we need to dramatize the evil, Andrew. And so that is why sometimes we go out and we do these interviews and people are like, dang, like all she did was just tell us everything is wrong. Well, I have to dramatize the evil. I have to tell you, and we have to make them wear it. And let me just say this. Anyone that is not being actively disrupted and agitating and doing the work of litigation, legislation, agitation, mobilization is being complicit in this wholesale harm. And although this harm is coming for everybody, it is anti-blackness on steroids. Right. So I'm paying attention to who isn't saying anything. Because
name them.
Because the harm is
right. Who are you talking about?
We want you to name them.
Don't fall in the trap, Congresswoman.
That's not a trap. That's not a trap. I think to Tiff's point. I think to Tiff's point last week, if somebody needs to be held accountable, they need to be held accountable. We cannot hold people accountable who we can't name. I don't think that that's a trap. I think that's the truth.
Do you care to drop a name? Because we got some.
That will be a mini pod.
There it is. There it is, friend. We'll talk about that on Monday.
Well, can I just say this, Congresswoman? If I ever had to cover you for something, I would have to recuse myself because I just love you. I want people, the American people watching this, to know that who they see on the floor of Congress, who they see on this podcast, and who we are privileged to see privately just with you is consistently the same person living in service to liberation, a true public servant with a personal testimony, your story. And I think there's a lot of complacency right now. I think there's a lot of apathy when it comes to government. And you still have that ability to give people goosebumps when you speak, to speak with righteous indignation and anger. And I know I share all your videos. And so I just want to take a moment to say thank you for your work. And that we are watching and paying attention, and we want to amplify you in whatever way. And I cannot be an impartial or unbiased person ever with you because you are my Aquarius sister. Happy belated birthday to you. The Congresswoman's birthday was February 3rd. And I just appreciate you and love you so much. And I want everybody to feel that way about you. So I don't even have a question. I just want to tell you that.
Ditto.
Last week, the CBC was my family, though. I just want to point that out. This is her family, too.
This is your family. I love Ayanna Pressley.
Call Tiff on that. She did not pick up. I literally called her on that. I said, let me find out.
Because I love Ayanna Pressley. The CBC as a body, respectfully, is not my family. Ayanna Pressley is my sister, who I'll fight somebody over. It will be the CBC. Let MTG start acting a fool on Capitol Hill, and they're going to see that place going to turn into a Jerry Springer set real quick. Yeah.
Don't go to jail. You might not get out in this environment.
I got a lawyer. Angela, get me out.
I don't know if I can get you out with this DOJ. And Bonnie is running this bitch.
Let me just say this, though.
Yeah,
I love the levity of this for a moment, and I thank you for those kind words, Fitz. I receive them, and I send them back to all of you. What you all are doing in this moment is so essential because people are hungry for accurate information. And look, you all have your opinions, you're going to editorialize, but you also just bring the straight facts. And you are trusted voices right now at a time of just mass dis and misinformation or no information. And I take so many of my cues from you. Honestly, this is the season for calling a thing a thing. And when I think about the fact, and this is what Democrats need to do, you don't talk people out of their experience.
Yes.
You don't counter their lived experience with slide decks.
Yes.
You just listen. And call a thing a thing. And that's how we build trust. When I ran for Congress for the first time, can y'all believe it's almost 7 years ago? When I ran for Congress the first time, I can't tell you how many consultants told me if you get asked in an interview if Donald Trump should be impeached or if he is a racist, pivot.
What?
That's why people, you'd be surprised.
No, I
But
wouldn't.
I'm just saying that's how we don't have trust. There's a deficit of trust because you have to call a thing
That's it.
a thing.
That's it.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And that's what you won't do.
Yeah.
Now,
you,
I wanna-
you definitely can't lead if you're afraid of your shadow. And it
Yeah.
seems to me that a lot of people up there are afraid of their shadow and what will come up and creep behind them on the next race. And therefore they're muted because they're in fear of themselves, stepping over themselves, saying the wrong thing and being held accountable. You speak the truth. The truth is the truth is the truth. All the time you can defend it. Otherwise, to hell with you, because I'm not fighting for people who don't fight.
Absolutely. And as our sibling in the movement, Brittany Packman Cunningham, says so often, scared power isn't power at all.
Mm-hmm.
And although we worked our hearts out to change this outcome, y'all, what if listening to black women was an actual practice and just not a statement t-shirt?
Wow.
We
Right.
keep being the canary in the coal mines on these things. None of us wanted this to come to pass, right? We did everything to stop it from happening. But one of the reasons I believe we're in this position is because when Democrats have the power, we don't use it. And Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they are transparent. They want the power. They want to amass the power. They want to wield the power. They will abuse the power.
And invent it.
And Democrats have been so busy proving that we're the adults in the room that we forgot to prove that we're the fighters in the room.
Come on, friend. Come on.
And that is this moment.
What do you
Angela,
think
you
the
had a
fight
question.
looks like? And I actually have a two-parter because the whole reason you wanted to come on was talking about reparations. We're going to get to reparations too, but I want to make sure that I ask this for those at home who feel like they're not seeing a fight in the Democratic Party, who feel like they're seeing people who just have kind of rolled over and accepted what is, who are frustrated that Ken Martin just yesterday, or by the time this airs a few days ago, dropped a memo that is 4 pages long, single-spaced, talking about what is next for the Democratic Party. And some of it is, frankly, tone deaf. So when you look at party leadership, when you look at the caucus, when you look at the obligation of the Tri-Caucus, the Democratic Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, the Progressive Caucus, where do you see the fight and what is the role of the people in this fight?
Okay, first let me just say this, just for the purposes of narrative shaping. Democrats did fight. We fought like hell to try to stop this from happening. So I want to start there, okay? To do everything possible so that Donald Trump would not be elected. The second thing is, Tiff, I think the challenge that we're having is it's not a messaging problem, because I hear a lot of my colleagues in the fight and saying the right things or things that I align on. We have a density and saturation problem that we have not overcome. We're trying to learn the lesson in real time that people's news and information is so bifurcated across so many platforms.
That's right.
And we're behind. So things don't feel coordinated. They don't feel amplified because we're not reaching saturation. We're not reaching density. And look, we're a diverse caucus, but this is not the time for people to be like, I'm going to vote my district. I'm going to say the thing that works best for my district. We need to be of one accord.
That's right.
Now, where I know we're all aligned on is the fight, and that is litigation. Some members will be on amicus briefs. The courts have been able to be a stopgap to slow roll some of this because it's just straight lawlessness. It is an unprecedented power grab. But what does an unprecedented power grab demand of us? Unprecedented clarity, unprecedented conviction, unprecedented leadership, unprecedented organizing, unprecedented mobilizing, and unprecedented joy, y'all. Because when they're coming for every civil right and human right and gain, we cannot give them that too.
Yes.
So that's why I said I'm going to choose community every single time. But the fight is litigation, it's legislation, it's agitation, it's mobilization. But just like with the presidential race, we have the better policies, but we did not have the cohesive message that breaks through. And that's why I'm saying that, we really have to challenge ourselves to just call a thing a thing. This is not the time for nuance, because the harm that is coming is blunt as hell. And we have to be just as blunt in how we take it on.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real.
So with that, one of the places where we know historically our folks have always felt unseen, unheard, unrepresented by this government. Even if we have those one-offs or two-offs or now 60-plus offs of folks who represent our interests, what we know is that this country has never properly served us. And one thing that you've done is taken on the legacy of Congressman John Conyers and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee in introducing HR 40, which is, of course, our reparations bill. So I'd love for you to talk briefly, Congresswoman, about why you decided to take up that mantle and what you're hoping to see happen in this very divided Congress.
Okay, two things. One, just to give you the background, and I thank you for making sure there's no erasure of Black history and saying that this was taken up 30 plus years ago by John Conyers, then by Sheila Jackson Lee, who is now both of whom are ancestors. Sheila Jackson Lee's daughter, Erica Lee Carter, who finished out her term, so former Congresswoman, asked me to meet with her and said after a lot of prayer and reflection, conversation with her staff, former staff of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee's, and even her own family, asked if I would take this on.
Wow.
And
Oh, we love you. And thank you for taking it on.
so one, I'm emotional because that she had the confidence to entrust me with this. And secondly, I was thinking of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who I was texting with in the final days of her time here. And her last message to me was, we must keep fighting for our priorities and never give up. And her daughter came to stand with me through a snowstorm on the day that we reintroduced HR 40. And I said, thank you for coming. I know this is emotional and it's hard for so many reasons. And she said, justice is never convenient. And that has stayed with me because when we reintroduced this, people, some people were like, is she like adult? She's been a legislator. She's been an aide. Reparations in this moment? Why would you do such a thing? Well, again, this is a moment of anti-Blackness on steroids. They've had different proxies for it with critical race theory, Black Lives Matter, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And diversity, equity, and inclusion, means the dismantling and defunding of that to harm a lot of people. But again, it's anti-Blackness on steroids. So what is the antidote to anti-Blackness? Pro-Blackness. So this is not the time to moderate our aspirations. I'm not going to shrink in the pursuit of our North Star.
Yeah.
This is exactly the time. So this is an educated, very conscious listener, viewership that you all have. So folks don't need me to talk about Jim Crow and redlining and Orangeburg and Tulsa. But, the point is, we are still very much digging out from the vestiges of slavery, legislated harm, not just things that happened organically in the ether. People forget that. This is legislated precise harm. So that is why we need race-conscious, prescriptive responses, because the harm that was done was precise and very race-conscious, and it was legislated.
Yep.
So if we can legislate hurt and harm, we should be able to legislate justice and to legislate healing. We have a $10 trillion racial wealth gap in this country that was created. So we have to undo the harm, do the reparative work that we did for indigenous people, for Japanese Americans who were in internment camps. And the important thing to note in this moment is that there is huge momentum around reparations. There are so many municipalities throughout the country, including the city of Boston, that have reparations task forces. There are so many municipalities that are now actively doing the work of redress. And reparations is not just about a check. So let me just quickly explain HR 40. It is an 18-month process, so it does have a finite end, okay? There are people that are appointed to this federal commission that we want to establish, 15 members in total, to examine and study the impacts of slavery to today, and then to offer up reparations proposals across all areas. So healthcare, housing, social, economic. So I know people will say, well, what do we need to study? We already know this. But no, it's worth examination and study. We have more momentum than ever before. In the last Congress, there were over 120 co-sponsors for HR 40. That's the most that we've ever had. I'm at about 80 right now, and I want to make sure that we exceed that original number to get this to the floor for a vote. So I'm not in denial about the sobering landscape, but I think it is important while we are doing the work of blunting these harms and mitigating harm that we have to be proactively still advancing something.
Yes.
So I'm not just going to take my lawmaking pen home because people are like, oh, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It could be impossible because I don't want to disrupt the momentum on the issue of reparations.
Oh, so powerful. And you said a lot there, Congresswoman, but I tell you, what will live for me is the reality that when they are coming for us, we don't shrink from that fight. We put a fight right back at them, and it's not going to be on their terms. It will be a fight determined by what is on our terms. I know you've got to bounce, but I am very curious to pass this question on to you that came to us from listeners, and quite frankly, continuously comes to us from listeners. And it's in this space of whether or not there are ways in which this Congress or we as a people, Black folks, can find common cause with certain pieces of the Trump agenda. And I'm just curious to know how it is you measure where common cause might exist when such a foundational question around whose role is what and the triflingness over your role, and then how you look past that and say, but let's work together on this, and that, and the third, because that's where we have common cause. Where's the balance in that? How do you address, what would you say? And maybe your answer as a legislator might be different. What a citizen's answer might be as an everyday, person and consumer.
Yeah. So, again, one of the things I find frustrating is that it is only when Democrats are governing in the minority that we are asked regularly, what will you do in the name of bipartisanship? But the question is never posed to people across the aisle. I also have to be just real and say that I don't think that there is a Republican Party right now. It is a cult of cowards who are complicit in wholesale harm of our shared constituents. This DOGE so-called Department of Government Efficiency that is taking a wrecking ball and a machete to our government infrastructure, there's nothing efficient about it. It certainly hasn't lowered the price of eggs or housing. It's just going to make people poorer, hungrier, and sicker. And if I can't get my colleagues across the aisle or 4 Republicans to join with us to move pieces of legislation to stand in the gap and to buffer these harms, I don't know. So it's a tough question to answer, but I will say this. I will sit at the table and work with anyone who is serious about centering everyone who calls this country home and advancing progress. But so far, they have not proven that they are serious about that work.
There it is.
That's it. But where would I hope there'd be opportunities? Housing, cannabis, community health centers. I mean, again, there's so many issues of consequence that affect our shared constituents, and there should be nothing partisan about those things.
I want to
keeping people housed and babies fed and things. These are not controversial things. Nothing radical about it.
At least they shouldn't be. As we prepare to let you go and bring the house down at the rally, our dear sister, I want to just ask you if you have parting words for those who don't see themselves represented in the members they have, whether state, local, or on the federal level. For those who see you as their representative and their voice, what is the thing that you would say to everybody who's continuing on in this fight and is scrambling to figure out what to do next? What's the thing that you would tell them to do? What's the point of encouragement?
I would say that everyone has a role to play. Some people are I just left visiting the program Youth Build, right? They're picking up a hammer in the name and the work of social, racial justice, progress, and change. I pick up a microphone and a lawmaking pen every day. Some people are going to pick up a paintbrush, you know. Some people are going to lead the revolution, and some people are going to pack the lunch for the people leading the revolution. So I would just encourage people to kind of do, you know, that internal audit of yourself. Like, what is my gift? And what do I seek to bring in this moment as my gift? If you're a prayer warrior, do that.
Yeah.
If you're a nurturer, do that. If you're a community and a movement builder, do that. If you believe in the electoral process still and want to do the work of engagement, do that. You know, and if you want to steward your platform to share information, do that. I think a lot of people think civic engagement is just running for office and voting. And so if you're questioning the integrity of a voting process,
Yeah.
and you have a deficit of trust in your elected representative, you're like, now what? But the opportunities for civic engagement and the responsibility have always been greater than that. And the power of the people has always been greater than the people in power. Now, people always feel away and trip when I say that, because they're like, well, technically, aren't you in a position of power? Yes. But I defeated a nearly 20-year incumbent and won by 18 points because I know where the real power lies. It is with the people. I govern cooperatively. So you, the people, are still powerful, yes, even in this moment, because every game that has happened was not led by government.
Yeah.
Government responded to the will of the people.
Come on.
I love it.
It's just the facts.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the facts. So I know folks are tired. Like I said, every movement needs imagination. That's my HR 40. That's one of my things I'm dreaming on, right?
Yeah.
It's strategy. So we need a defensive strategy, litigation, legislation, agitation, mobilization, and we need stamina. And that's what we really struggle with. That's why boycotts are short-lived.
Yeah.
Because we struggle with stamina.
Yeah.
Right.
We got to sleep
So
in
we're
shifts.
going to have to summon, we got to summon, sleeping shifts.
Yeah.
And summon, every bit of strength that we have in this moment. I'm going to close with this. Cecile Richards, because I co-chair the newly named Reproductive Freedom Caucus, which used to be the Pro-Choice Caucus. And Cecile Richards was an incredible partner in that fight. You know her from Planned Parenthood, the daughter of former Texas Governor Ann Richards, and she recently died from brain cancer. And she was out there organizing and fighting even though she was sick, and people said, what are you doing here? And she said, because in the future they'll pose the question, what did they do when everything was at stake for the country? And she said, the only acceptable answer is everything. Everything we could. So I get it, y'all. Y'all feel like you're losing everything, so you want to know that we're willing to risk it all. So put it on the line. And I am.
Oh, we love you for
We
it.
love
you,
you.
sis. Thank you so
for
much.
that. That's
Get
so
to that
powerful.
rally.
Yes, get to
Get to
that
that
rally.
rally.
Thank you so
Tell
much.
tell the
Congresswoman.
workers
You
we
rallied
stand with
us.
them too. Tell them we stand with them too.
We have your back.
I sure will.
Yeah.
We have
I
your
sure
back.
will. They love y'all. You know, they take so much pride that the theme song came from Boston.
Yes.
You know, so I
Thank your
will
constituent.
take that there.
We
Yeah.
love it.
Congresswoman,
Tell your team
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. We love you and we got your back.
you.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeart Radio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeart Radio, visit the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.